Welcome to Jewish Life. I'm Susie Kaufer. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a very, very exciting show here. We have our special guest, Rabbi Zalmy Kudan. Welcome, Rabbi Kudan.
Hey, thanks again for having me back here. I love this show.
Great to see you. Great to see you. And we're so excited because, as you could see, we've got some very interesting items today. And they look like they might come from animals, as far as I could tell.
They definitely do. This is my Shofar collection.
Shofar collection.
All different types of animal horns, and we'll talk about them, especially as we're coming up to Rosh Hashanah. So.
Wow, yes, we are in the high holiday season of Rosh Hashanah, and we are very blessed to have you with us to help the preview of our special New Year's. The Jewish New Year's is coming up at the end of the month, I believe.
It is indeed, yep. September 29th, actually September 28th that night would be the first night of Rosh Hashanah.
Okay.
Because you know the Jewish day starts at night.
Yes.
So Shabbat starts Friday night, and Rosh Hashanah will start on Wednesday night, September 28th, and then it'll go for 2 days, September 29th and September 30th. So we're getting there.
Very good. So these have to do with the new year and bringing in the new year, and we're going to be talking about that. We actually have a video of an Israeli shofar factory that Rabbi Zalmy has brought with him today. And at the end of the show, we're going to do a real demonstration, a hands-on live demonstration about how to make shofar.
Yes, we will make
correct?
A shofar from a raw goat's horn.
Wow. I don't know if that's ever been done on cable TV before, but
Listen,
this might be a first.
If we get your goat, you're in the right place. All right.
Excellent. And I wonder if you can give us a brief overview about the shofar, blowing the shofar, what significance it has, and what it actually has to do with the new year.
Excellent. Okay, so the shofar is blown on the high holidays, Rosh Hashanah specifically, and at the end of Yom Kippur as well. And there's three major reasons why we blow the shofar on that day. So it says in the Torah that it's a day of shofar blowing, but it doesn't really say why. So there's three reasons given. The first one is that as we start a new year, Rosh Hashanah, we're celebrating the creation of the world as well. It's actually the day that Adam and Eve were created, Adam and Chava, the first man and woman. And since the world was created for the human beings to develop and progress, so therefore on the day they were created, that's the day we remember the beginning of the world. And we actually blow the shofar as the sound of crowning God as king of the world again as we start a new year. And in the Jewish year, we count from the creation of the world, and that was 5,772 years ago, this Rosh Hashanah. So we're coming up to that anniversary. Wow. It also has a historical significance. It's sort of like a reminding sound where it reminds us of the different historical events that took place with a shofar. So one of them is the binding of Isaac, which is recorded in the Torah, where it talks about God telling Abraham, to bring his son as a sacrifice, which was actually meant to be a test of Abraham's faith. It wasn't meant to actually slaughter him. We don't believe in human sacrifices at all. That's God forbid to kill someone. But God wanted to see if Abraham would listen to whatever he said, even things that were opposite of what Abraham knew to be God's ways. And Abraham brings him up on the mountain and he binds him, and then God says, I was just kidding, we're just testing you.
Quite a joke.
Yeah, really. And Abraham instead sacrificed a ram in thanksgiving to God. And so the ram's horn, which we're going to blow, is remembering that great sacrifice of our forefather Abraham, reminding us that, and reminding God as we're praying for a new year and for all the blessings of a new year, that we want God to remember the service and the commitment of Abraham, our ancestor. And hopefully that will stand us in good stead for the coming year. Also the giving of the Torah itself at Mount Sinai also had the sounding of the shofar, as the story is recorded in the Torah. And also it reminds us of the time to come with the Messiah that is going to be heralded by the blowing of a great shofar. So that's also in the prayers, actually. If you open up your prayer book and you read through the prayers, either on the English side or the Hebrew side, we have both in our synagogue at Chabad.
Very nice.
So that helps us understand a little bit about what the shofar is about. The final reason is that the new year in Judaism is a very serious time. And maybe you want to contrast that to January 1st, where there's a lot of partying and the ball is dropping and the confetti. In Judaism, the new year is a really serious time. It's a time when we celebrate a new year, where we have a new opportunity to reconnect ourselves and to our godly soul, which is inside each and every one of us. And we have the opportunity to really reflect on what happened in the past year and where we might want to make improvements and commitments to being a more Jewish, godly person. And the shofar sound is sort of that alarm clock, sort of waking us up to that event. And we'll actually get to blow the shofar a little bit, and we can hear that sound soon.
Wow. So would you say the sound is sort of some kind of a reminder? It's some kind of an ancient reminder to us as a people?
100%. So I think it has, in the words of the prayers, it has three things. On the one hand, it's malchiot, it's proclaiming God's kingship. And then it's zichronot, it's reminding us, it's a reminding tone sort of the times that passed, the great events in history. And then shofarot, it's also the sound of the shofar is sort of like the crying of the soul as it connects to its godly source.
And now these three things, are they all represented by different types of sounds? Are there different kinds of blowings? I see you have a lot of different types of horns here. Maybe you could tell us a little about the horns and the type of sounds they make and why we use them and what they are. They're pretty amazing. I've never seen
we have quite a display here. So why don't we first talk about the different shofars that we have here, and then we can get into the blowing, actually. We can blow for you.
Sounds
one of my hidden talents. Okay. So we could start off with what type of animal a shofar could come from. So in general, a shofar has to come from a kosher animal. And a kosher animal, according to Torah, has two prerequisites. Number one, it chews its cud, and number two, it has split hooves. Okay, so the most common shofar that we blow today is the ram's horn.
I see, the horn.
All right, and
very nice.
Yeah, this is the only time you're going to see a Jew with horns. Okay, so don't get too excited. That myth, by the way, comes from Michelangelo.
Really?
Yeah, Michelangelo mistranslated a verse in the Torah that talks about Moses' face shining with a ray of light. And the word that is used is karan or pnei Moshe. And the word keren is a horn. So that mistranslation led to Michelangelo sculpting horns on Moses' face. But in reality, Jews look like me and Susie. We both don't have any horns. So
no horns.
That's the story. But anyway, the ram's horn reminds us again of that story of the binding of Isaac, which was an actual ram. So we want to remind God of that story. So in most synagogues, especially the Ashkenazic custom, you will see a ram's horn being blown, and this is how it is raw, and this is how it is after it's already polished up and buffed and as you saw in the video, which we're going to do. We're going
to be showing the video in a couple of minutes.
So when we show that video, we'll be able to see actually how they do that. So we'll do that right after this. So this is a ram's horn and the raw one. We also have here another kosher animal called a cow. Now, or a bull or an ox, and the ox horn actually is not kosher for Rosh Hashanah. So we will not use that. There's two reasons. One of the reasons is that it degrades quickly, and that's not considered to be a beautiful mitzvah. And we always want to make our mitzvahs, which means a commandment of God. It also means a connection to God. We want to make sure that's as pretty as possible. And the cow's horn falls apart and chips away. You can I don't know if you could see it at home, but that's the bottom line. And the other reason is that it reminds us of the story of the golden calf, where the Jewish people worshiped the golden calf 40 days after they got the Torah telling them the Ten Commandments not to worship idols. So that's not where we don't shy away from mistakes, that we recognize that human beings make mistakes and that God forgives us. And as a matter of fact, Yom Kippur is the day that God actually forgave the Jewish people and gave us the second set of tablets. So we're not looking to run away from our misgivings and our misdeeds, but we don't want to, when we're crowning God and we're reminding us of the new commitments we're making, we don't need to use the exact animal that the Jewish people erred so badly. So that's the kosher animal that we will not use. I have a couple kosher animals we could use.
Okay, what about those small guys? What are those?
Yeah, this is actually a pair of goat's horns. I don't know if you saw them walking around. And actually this one right here is actually the world's smallest shofar. Kosher shofar. And the reason is, I don't know if you can see it, maybe we could zoom in a little bit, but if you, the sound is not that great, but it is a kosher shofar, and it blows, the reason it's the smallest possible is that the shofar has to be long enough to be seen on both sides of your hand, so that there's no concern that maybe the guy is just, I can fake it out a little bit. But okay, wow. So that's the horns. We also have some other small ones here. These are from an antelope.
Okay.
A type of mountain goat, and they're a little twisty and curvy. They're very rarely used in an actual shofar. a very large antelope. This is not a samurai spear.
Wow.
This is
Looks like a
actually,
good weapon.
yeah, it's not a weapon. It's a weapon for the animal. That's what
Yes,
we use it for.
indeed.
And I will pause just for a moment to say that we are not allowed to take an animal's horns off of it while it's alive. There's a mitzvah in the Torah called Tsar Balei Chaim, where we're prohibited to cause any pain to an animal unnecessarily. So these horns that we use for the shofar either fell off in combat, or by accident, or from a dead animal that was found dead, or from an animal that was slaughtered for food, which is permitted by Torah.
That's
So
good to know.
otherwise, there's no way that you're allowed to take off an animal's horn. So that's a very
There's
large
no
horn.
cruelty that has gone on this
No,
on this
absolutely
table.
not, and
No
it's
animal
actually
cruelty.
forbidden. If an animal's horn is removed while the animal's alive, you're not allowed to use that shofar for a mitzvah.
Wow.
That would be considered disgusting to use a shofar that was created through a sin of causing pain to the animal. This is a very large device. It is
Wow.
it's actually from a water buffalo.
Huh.
It's actually quite heavy. I don't know if you want to hold this thing, but it weighs a good 14, 15 pounds.
It's huge.
And,
it looks like an elephant's.
Yeah,
almost.
an elephant's tusk would be very hard to make into a shofar because it's solid ivory.
Right.
But this is hollow, and
Let's see. And it's big.
And it's big, and again, it's not a commonly used horn, but it could be shofar's thing. So another kosher animal is the deer, and the deer does chew its cud and have split hooves. But if someone told me make this into a shofar, I would say, oh dear. You know? No, because it's again, it's solid bone, and
Right.
it has a very awkward shape, and you wouldn't be able to drill through it. So those
Very
are my
nice.
shofars. I think now would be a good time if we can see that video of the Israeli shofar factory
That'd be
and
great.
how it's actually made, and then I'll teach you how to blow the shofar,
Excellent.
and then after that we can go and actually make one.
Fantastic.
All right,
Let's
here we
roll
go.
it. Thank you. Wow, that was a great video,
That
Rabbi
was
Zalmy.
fantastic. Straight from the Holy Land, a beautiful shofar demonstration.
That was great. Now we have a live Golita demonstration
we're
of the same.
Yeah, we're going to do it right now. We're going to pretend that we're actually making a shofar.
Okay.
So I have over here a shofar that came off of a goat, and that's what we're going to be using. And the shofar has in it a piece of cartilage. So the cartilage is what's attached to the animal.
You showed us that in the video.
Yeah, so that's right. So they heated up. I actually once did this with my rabbi. We heated up the raw shofar with a cartilage in it. And the house stunk for 3 days, and 15 Lysol bottles later, it was really smelly. So don't try this at home. But after the cartilage is removed, so then the shofar is hollow. However, the cartilage, as you can see, only goes to about 3/4 of the way down. So the last quarter or third of the shofar is still solid, and that's where we're going to have to do a little bit of sawing and drilling and be able to make sure that all happens. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a shofar, which the cartilage was already removed, and we're going to use a very high-tech instrument called a pipe cleaner.
Huh.
And this pipe cleaner we're going to insert it into here, and we're going to be able to use this to measure on the outside of the shofar how far the cartilage was removed.
Wow.
So we actually have about, as you can see, it goes about, pretty far in, it's, about there. So we're going to cut it out a little bit before in the actual demonstration.
It looks like you've done this before, Rabbi.
Yeah, I've done this
Zalmy.
we actually do this with some youth groups. We've done this in Hebrew schools and a lot of things. The largest Hebrew school I did this with was 500 kids. We made 500 shofars. It took 4 hours and it was a big mess. But we're just going to do one now. So that's the story. Okay, so I'm going to use a saw here, and safety first. We always put on safety equipment. So anybody watching at home here, please take heed. We're trying not to hurt anybody here. And in a real shofar factory, we have lots of other tools and stuff that we use. We sand it and we buff it and we make it look really nice. But we're just going to show you the basics here right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to saw off the very end of that shofar, which is what we're starting to do.
Wow. That was something.
All right, so now we have the shofar minus the tip. And as you can see, there's a teeny hole there,
Yes, I can.
which means that we measured correctly, which is good.
Excellent.
And as you know, in order to make, if anybody who plays trumpet or any instrument at home, in order to make a sound, you need to have a wider mouthpiece than you have at the beginning. So you're forcing a lot of air into that small hole to make the thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to first use the drill to make it smooth around that hole. And then we're going to use a very expensive piece of equipment, which is called a unibit. So those of you who are tool buffs, you will recognize this thing. I'm not exactly sure what this is used for. It's used for making different sized openings with one drill bit. It's a very expensive drill bit. They can be up to $100. So it's not a very common thing to have, but that's the story. And this is what we're using to making our drill bit to make the hole small and then wider on the outside. Okay, so now our hole is a little wider on the outside and a little thinner on the inside. And we're going to use that pipe cleaner again, very high-tech tool, to clean it out. Yeah, it's a little messy, and they don't taste very good, those little bits. So, all right. And now I'm going to be able to take off my goggles and my safety equipment, and we're going to actually try to blow this thing, and we're going to hope that some type of sound comes out.
I heard that.
So it's not
Very
the
good.
most amazing shofar in the world,
No,
but
it's beautiful.
it'll
First
definitely
time
do.
in
And that
Golita.
was live
Right in front
on
of us.
right there on the show. So that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna now, if it's okay, we'll talk about a little about the sounds of the shofar.
Yeah, I've heard different kinds of tunes, different kind of sounds come out. Is there some significance to these sounds, or are they random?
Okay, so that's a good question. So the sounds of the shofar actually have a lot of meaning, and they're very telling. And anybody who's been in shul on Rosh Hashanah, when you hear the shofar, it brings out some emotion and some seriousness. And actually, as the video said, in different parts of the world, they use different animals. I know this is a kudu horn. It's a Yemenite shofar, and it has a very different type of sound. And it has a very deep, resounding sound. It's a beautiful, beautiful shofar.
Definitely sounds like the heralding of something important.
Exactly. So, but it's a little hard to blow these shofars. It takes a lot of wind. So for the actual notes, I can use this ram's horn, which is a beautiful shofar as well.
Okay.
And the sound of the shofar, a quick story that's told, a parable, is of a prince who is sent away by the royal king in order to test the integrity of the prince. In other words, this prince is going to lead the country in the future, so we want to see how he deals with what he doesn't have the perfect conditions of the palace and the beautiful education and the food and the clothing and the role models and everything else that they make sure to put into the palace life. And the prince goes out of town, and sure enough, the prince starts to hang out with the wrong crowd, and the pants get a little more baggy, and the language gets a little more vulgar. And pretty soon, the prince looks like the regular riffraff, and it doesn't have that royal gait and the royal dress and the royal talk. And when the prince comes back home, the guards of the palace don't recognize him at all. And he's like, I want to go see my father. They're laughing at him, like this riffraff, with the scruffy beard, you know what I mean? So the prince starts to cry. And the king, up in his bedroom, hears the cry of the prince, and he says, that sounds like my son's cry. And he rushes down and gives him the big hug and welcomes him back home. And this is a parallel to what happens to the Jewish person throughout the year. On Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we're in the synagogue and we're all holy, and we make all these commitments, and we're feeling very connected to our Jewish self and to our Jewish soul and to our godly self. And then as the year goes on and Hanukkah passes and Passover passes, Pesach passes, then suddenly we might forget and we start to say certain things that we might not have wanted to say, and start to think certain things, and maybe we dress a certain way or we eat certain things, and we feel bad. So then we try coming back on Rosh Hashanah, and they're like, who are you? This is not, And then the call of the shofar is that pure cry of the Jewish person, the essence of the Jewish soul, which is connected to the essence of God with a pure unity that can never be damaged by any action or any speech or any thought. And that's the connection that we reignite every year on the new year. So it's a really powerful thing. And so the shofar sounds are actually meant to mimic crying. So the first sound is called the tekiah. And a tekiah is a long, simple sound, which is meant to, again, resemble that simple, pure connection of the Jewish person with God. And I will blow a tekiah right now. And then we have the broken sound in the middle. And the broken sound in the middle is made up of two parts, and that is two types of crying. One is called the shavarim, which means literally broken, which is sort of like a sobbing. I have 4 little kids at home, you have to excuse me.
Very good.
So that sound, the shavarim, sounds like this on the shofar. So many rabbis in the times of the Talmud felt that this is the way that a person cries. And other rabbis said that no, it's more of a hysterical cry. Like and that is called the teruah. And there were other rabbis that said that actually both sounds are part of the crying and the upsetness. And it's actually sometimes in stages where first a person has that long, simple blast, oh, and then it breaks down a little more, and then it just gets hysterical. So this type of crying is what is meant to be signified by the shofar. So actually when you go to the shul, and I'll put a little plug for Chabad services, which are really nice, and I try to explain as we go along the services and explicate them, and give a little of the historical and literal meanings, and also some of the more mystical meanings to the prayers, and that all is complemented with the actual prayer book, which is Hebrew and English. So that'll be on September 29th and 30th.
And are those for children and adults?
Yes, very good. So we have our services are catered towards everybody. Our services start at 10 o'clock, or you can come at 10:30 also. It's when the services really begin in their more formal state.
Okay.
Shofar blowing will be at 11 o'clock on both days. And we do have a children's service which starts at 11 o'clock as well on both days. And we're having an actual special children's program at 4 o'clock p.m. on Thursday as well, the 29th. And that's going to be, simply to give the kids the opportunity to do the mitzvah. And we're going to have some ice cream and some games and activities and all that good stuff to give the kids a really good time. So that's our special children's service. But everybody's welcome. And you don't have to have a certain experience or background. We have real-time page announcings. You'll never get lost.
Excellent.
Okay, so now what I'll do is I'll blow one full shofar blast, if that's okay.
Yeah, and then that'll be it.
And then that'll be you'll get the full experience. And that's the shofar blast.
Wow.
And I guess we should bless everybody with the traditional blessing for this time of year, which is to be written and sealed in for a good and sweet new year. And that's in the book of life and in the book of health and prosperity and all good things for everybody who's watching at home and everybody who's not watching. Everybody should be blessed with only the good and the best of peace and health and well-being.
We want to thank Rabbi Zalmy for bringing in such a wonderful shofar factory, a live demo in Goleta. It might be a first. I think it's a historic first. So thank you, Rabbi Zalmy, for coming. You've been watching Jewish Life. I'm Susie Kaufer, and we'll see you next time.